Hey, what's up guys? This is Zane from InZane Comics, and I'm back with another tutorial. Now this time I've heard a lot of requests for this one. A lot of people ask how to find a printer. There are a lot of US based suppliers for printing. The thing is, I would always prefer to use a US supplier, but I've been looking at quotes and man, they're like $4 a comic if I'm trying to only print like 250, 300 comics. And for someone who's starting off as an indie comic book publisher, it's that's too much to like pay for a few comics. So I want to show you guys something that I use. I typically buy my comics from China, and and I want to walk you through the process on how to get comics from China. So real quick, I get the source that I use to buy comics is through Alibaba.com, and in fact, it's not even just for comic books. I mean, if it's stickers or anything you want to manufacture, you can use Alibaba for this. So if you expand from comic books and you want to start making board games, or if you want to start making toys or anything like that, you can make it customized. You can find suppliers through here. And then the best thing about Alibaba is that it's almost like an eBay. It's suppliers come here and you reach out to suppliers through this instead of talking to them directly, because it's too risky to deal with people internationally, and there's no consequence. They can either send you something or not. It's up to them really. So I prefer to use this, and I want to show you some things to be careful about when you're making these orders. So let's go right into it. Real quick, you need to sign up with Alibaba. You can sign up through your Google account. That's what I do typically. So when you log in, you'll get into a screen like this. So I'm going to walk you through the process because I actually have to look for some comic book suppliers, and essentially this is what I would do. I mean, go on top and you pretty much just type in comic book and comic book printing. I guess we'll type that in. All right, so you get something that looks like this, pretty much like an eBay or anything like that. Now, here are some things that I want you to be aware of. There's certain things we're going to select here. First of all, I like to put a lower minimum order. By the way, this is going to be per comic, so it's not total. Like if you have 4 issues, you can't say that I want 100, I want 400 comics, 100 per each. You would have to put 100, as your minimum order. But let's say I put 200 as my minimum order. All right, I'm gonna click OK. So that weeds out some of the suppliers, because some suppliers require you to order like 1,000 pieces and stuff like that. Make sure you have this trade assurance clicked, because what this is, Alibaba guarantees your money essentially when you pay your supplier. It goes through Alibaba. A lot of times here, these suppliers are going to say pay me through PayPal or a direct transfer to their bank. I just wouldn't recommend that. I would not feel comfortable doing that. I don't mind doing it if I have to pay for samples, just because it's not that much. It's going to be a small dollar amount, but just to pay them directly, I couldn't do it. Okay. Anyways, so now we have this list of different suppliers, and we just go down through this list. So that all these people should have trade assurance, all right? And now I'm going to show you how to do this. By the way, I come from a supply chain background, so I would do purchasing and procurement as part of my job. And one of the things that kind of like almost a rule of thumb is to at least have 10 suppliers and have 3 quotes that you're generally interested in. That's your criteria. So if you don't have 3 quotes, then continue to look for suppliers. But it's up to you how you want to do it. But I like to send it to as many people as I can, just so I can see the wide variety of offers. All right, so these guys say 100 pieces is the minimum order. Right here, what this is saying is that it could be 20 cents to $2, which means if you're going to order the minimum, you're looking at paying about $2. It's not that great, but let's see. We'll ask them and let them give us a quote, because usually this is not a they'll tell you something different than whatever is written here. Sometimes you'll find places where it'll say 10 cents and like they say dollar here, and they would change the price on you. All right, so clicked here, and I always kind of click it on a separate tab so I can see what's going on. All right, now basically you don't really need to see everything else unless you want to. Apparently they do give free samples, but the way that typically works is that you'll probably have to pay for the shipping. One of the things I want to recommend though, whenever you're picking a supplier, when you've came down to your top 3 suppliers, please do yourself a favor and get a sample. I want to explain something with samples. You're going to need to get 2 different variations of samples. Ask for a comic printout of your sample, even if you don't have lettering, or if it's just like some of them is colored, some of it not, just send it. And the reason why is because you want to see how well does that supplier comply to your requirements. And then the second, ask for comic book samples that they've done previously so that you can see how do they manage mass production. Because I want you to understand something, that whatever you send them to make a sample, like whatever comic book sample you're going to ask them to make, they're going to use a different printer. They're not going to use their offset printer. So sometimes the quality of what they're giving you as a sample is going to be much higher than what you're going to actually get. Just something to be aware of. Another thing to kind of keep in mind is that whenever you do ask for a sample, typically what you should expect is that they'll want to charge about $30 to $50, mainly because that's the cost of shipping. A lot of times they'll just give you, stuff for free. If it's $50, that means they're charging you for the print as well. It's a lot better than getting samples from like some of the US companies, because they'll charge like $250. So even if you pay $50, let's say you got 3 suppliers and you paid $150 just to see the quality, and then that's your main go-to supplier, it's worth it. At least I think so. All right, so now what we're going to do here is we're going to click Contact Supplier. Now, this is what it's going to pretty much look like. I don't really care to put anything here because it doesn't really matter. They don't even really look at that. Or they might, but what I focus on is what I enter here. Now, let me explain everything I'm going to put in here. Hi, could you please give me a code for the following items? All right. Then I list a different kind of requirements that I need. And instead of typing this all out, I'm just going to copy and paste this so you can see. So sizes, know what's your comic book size. Unlike some of the suppliers in the US, they might give you what sizes they can do. And in China, you can pretty much dictate whatever size you want. When you're working through it, I definitely recommend you download a template so you know what your bleed areas are. And if you don't know that, send me. If you don't know what bleed is and all that, send me a message and I can explain it to you, or I can send you a template. But you got to be careful with that, because basically what that means is some of your comic image or text could get cut off if it's too much towards the edge. But anyways, China is typically in the metric system, but you can send them with in inches or whatever. I think the US standard is, 6.75 by 10.5, something like that, inches is the comic book dimensions. But anyways, you can send whatever size you want. Now the cover, here's what I put in there for mine, and this is for the fancier comic books with a glossy, when they have the glossy cover, and they also have the glossy coated interiors. I'm going to put glossy here. And what this is the 200 GSM or 105 GSM. That's basically the thickness of the paper. There's just one sample that I got that was 250 G cover, and 128 was the inside. Sorry, the 250 was for the cover, The 128 was from the inside, and I mean, this looks beautiful. But just keep in mind that the more this is, you don't want it to be too clunky, but the more you bump this up, the more expensive it's going to be. So just kind of keep that in mind. And you know, one good thing is that whenever they send you samples, ask them to send you different variations of comic books that they've made with different paper quality. So that when you get it, you can kind of tell the difference, you can feel the difference, and then you'll know exactly what you want. Sometimes it's worth it to pay a little bit more and get that quality that you want. Now, binding, since I'm working on single comic books, I asked for saddle stitch. You know, I didn't know this before, and maybe just, I don't know, it's probably just me, but I might as well explain it to you. Maybe some of you guys don't know this either. Saddle stitch is when the comic book is stapled in the middle. I thought it was like actually literally stitched. But no, it's the staples that go in the middle of the comic book is what's called saddle stitched. I include here each comic in op bag, and that's important just because, you know, sometimes these things could get damaged in through shipping process. They could potentially get damaged. So if you ask for this op bag, and essentially what that is the plastic bag that goes over a comic book. So that's what that is. So that's basically my main requirements. Then here are okay, so now this is what I need the quotes for. And you know, obviously you can pick whatever you want. Typically, I'll use the same supplier for bookmarks. A lot of the same companies, I mean, if they're doing printing, they can make posters, bookmarks, stickers, anything really related with printing, they could potentially make it. So it's just easier sometimes to have the same supplier make those stuff for you. And so I just put, you know, 200 bookmarks of different variations. I have these various posters, and then 200 comic books. You know, by the way, like I list here cover pages as well. And you got to keep in mind what that basically, when we talk about pages, we're talking about basically a side of a page. So let's say just the front page, for example, that's considered 2 pages according to printing. And whenever you're submitting that, just something to keep in mind. It's not the back and forth. But I'm pretty sure if you're working at your digital, you're looking at how many pages are in your PDF, not necessarily how they come out in print. So I think I don't think there'll be any confusion there. And yeah, I just put the quantity and the different types of, I have 4 different types of comic books that I want them to print, and then the total pages. I did mention here that I want them all in color. So just, you can mention that or they'll ask you, so it's no big deal. Here's some of the important stuff that I do want to mention that you need to include in your quote. One of the things is ask them to send you some pictures of comic books that they've previously made. If they don't send you comic books, then they send you books or something else. You know, if you get too many quotes, maybe you can just omit anyone who's sending you pictures of like storybooks and stuff, and just focus on the ones who actually send you comic books or even magazines, so that you will know at least that they know what they're doing. Because I've actually got some samples from people who make books specifically for like children's books, and it just came out really bad. I don't know, they messed everything up. Maybe it was just that one supplier, but just something to keep in mind. And then another thing is, I would personally feel more comfortable with a company that would make samples. And if they do, how much are they going to charge? Like I mentioned earlier, you're looking at somewhere around about $30 to $50. If they're asking more than $50, just no way. I mean, tell those are going to end up being those guys that they give you a quote, you're in the middle of everything, you're about to get it printed, and they'll jump the quote up. So I wouldn't even go with those guys. Definitely ask for shipping costs with your quote, because a lot of times they're not going to give you the cost of shipping included in there. They try to keep that out of their quotes. Definitely ask for it. And then whenever they do submit you a quote, be sure to ask again, does this include the shipping cost? One of the things I just thought about that I might as well mention is that maybe some of you might be wondering, how does customs work with importing from China? Well, technically, printed material doesn't require, whenever you buy something from China, it needs to say made in China. That's a custom requirement. But printed material doesn't require to say made in China. So just something to keep in mind. And the way that it works to pay customs is that if there's customs due on your products, then the what do you call it, USPS or whoever the postal service is, DHL, whoever it's going to be that's going to bring it to you, they're going to be the ones who are going to charge you whatever the custom amount is going to be. So far, I haven't had any because I guess my quantities are very low. Maybe once I start going in the thousands or something like that, then I might start getting those custom bills. But I just want to, kind of bring that out to you guys, just for those of you who are worried about that. Don't be worried. Feel free to order, and if there is going to be a bill, it's going to come through customs, and it's going to be, I think, 10% or something. It's something small. It's not that much, but I haven't seen any with the quantities that I order. And okay, going back to this. Tell them to take pictures of how they ship this material out, because I've had some packages that come in that they were not packaged well at all. And by the time they came in, anything that was outside exposed to weather, I mean, it was barely made it. So make sure that they're putting like waterproof seals on these packages, and they're making it very secure. So that's one of the things. Okay, so that's basically all the information that I put to get quotes for the comic book. So now I'm going to send an inquiry, and you know what, I'm going to, real quick, what I would recommend you do is to copy all this information, because then you can just copy and paste to every supplier you talk to. Send inquiry now. Alright, so now I sent the inquiry. Don't leave this page. Here is something that you can make things a lot easier. Rather than sending a bunch of people messages, you can go over here and you can do submit an RFQ, which is RFQ stands for request for quote. And you can just do this once and send it to multiple people immediately. Here, maybe it's important to write how many you want to order, 200 pieces. And I would just change this title and write comic book. And over here, paste all that information that we wrote earlier. Okay? So now what this is going to do is when I click this submit RFQ, it's going to go out to all the comic book suppliers. They can all see it, and they can all put a quote in, put a bid in for you to review. All right, so let's do submit RFQ. All right, so basically now I've sent the RFQ. And that's it. That's basically all it is to, send a request for information. And let's go back to where we're at. I'm going to delete all this. All right, so we're back to this, and now you can just go down the list, and like this guy, I can send this person a message, and I don't know, maybe I could send it to them, but they're asking $2 a piece, so I'll probably forget them. These people I'll probably for sure send a message to, but they don't make comic books. These guys make comic books, but it's $2 a piece. Anyways, you get the gist of it. You go down this list and just send a bunch of people notes. Now let me show you exactly what it looks like when you get a response back. So in order for you to look at your messages, and by the way, they have an app too, so you can download the app as well. But the way you look at your messages is you go over here to your My Alibaba, and that's me in my professional suit. And just click My Alibaba. All right, now that you click this, now you have all these different screens. What you need to look at is Message Center. So you click on Message Center, and when the first time you click on this, they'll kind of give you a little rundown on how it works, but I'm going to go ahead and explain it to you. So typically whenever you send a message, it's going to look something like this, right? That's me. That's the message we sent earlier to that individual, and it has all that information. And they haven't read it yet. The quote that I sent earlier, the way it's kind of like supposed to go to multiple users, well, it will look something like this. So this is how direct messages look like. And then messages that you're sent to multiple suppliers will come in like this. which is pretty cool. I mean, you can look at it all side by side. It'll tell you, okay, what are the minimum requirements? How much are they per piece that they're asking? And then let's say now you say, all right, they're 1 cent or whatever. This looks pretty cool. And then you can start having, you can see more in detail. There's this lady right here. So you can look at all the messages within that, or that RFQ that we sent. So let's see what Sunny has to say. But basically, Sunny will say all these messages. She'll say something like this, but her quote is over here. And then you can start asking her more questions. Does this include, shipping? Does this include, what all is included in this? And then let's see what Laura. And so whenever there's a new message, there's that little dot that pops up. And I sent her a message saying that I'm looking to get these comics in the first week of May. And she says, got it. I'll quote you tomorrow. Have a nice day. Right? You can really quickly look at messages you haven't read by just clicking unread, and then you get all these messages. But it's pretty simple. I mean, the format is going to be something to what you've probably seen. You'll get accustomed to it pretty easily. I have made several orders, and I can show you. So this is what so you click on your orders, and this is what it's going to look like. And this is also where you pay for your order as well. Anything that comes outside of this, do not pay for it. I just would not take that risk. But yeah, here's like some of the quotes that I have, like, paid $120 for, like 300 of these silicone bands. I mean, these are pretty reasonable prices. I recently ordered banners for an exhibition I'm going to be at, the Fan Expo in Dallas. So if you guys are out there, please come out and, show some love. So I'll be out there, and I ordered banners, and banners cost me, like, I was looking locally, and I found quotes for like $250 for like one of those roll-up those roll-up banners. And from China, I was able to order 3 banners and a tablecloth for $200, and that includes shipping. So yeah, man, it comes out pretty cheap. And if this can help anybody reduce their cost, especially in what we do, and it's just so competitive, then I think it'll make it all worth it. But yeah, if you guys have any questions about how to use this, or if you're not unsure about something on the site and you want to learn more about it, just please send me a message. And I'll be making more tutorials on things that I'm working on and doing. So be sure to subscribe and like, comment, and until next time, thank you guys. See you later.